Hi everyone, welcome to Museum Roadshow. I'm Amy, the director here at the Becker County Museum, and today we're going to talk about probably one of the best topics that I think we can talk about in Becker County history, which is lost towns, sometimes called ghost towns. I like to call them lost because some of them still have pieces remaining and some of them don't have anything left. But I think in terms of defining a lost town, I like to think of them as towns that at one time had an incorporation, so they were officially incorporated, had some kind of village council or city council later. Those that had a schoolhouse that was established within the bounds of that community. And typically they tend to be connected to the railroad in some way. Most of the towns in Becker County popped up because they were along the railroad line. And they were there for specific reasons. That could have been for supplies, it could have been because they were a good stopping point for the logging industry or for farmers to bring their crops in and send along on the railroad. So again, the bulk of them lie along the lines of either the Northern Pacific or the Sioux line, so kind of east, west, north, south. And we'll go through a few of them today. We have a lot of really interesting things from some of these small towns, and we have some that don't have any, so we'll look at maps as well. The first of those is Oak Lake, or Oak Lake Cut. Now this town lied approximately where the Forest Hills Golf Club sits today, right along Highway 10. And the reason it sort of popped up there as the very first official settlement in Becker County, once the county was opened for settlement, was because of the fact that as the railroad was working its way through Becker County in the early 1870s, they came to a point right outside of Audubon there that had a big hill, and so they had to cut their way through the hill. And so the reason that they called it Oak Lake Cut is because they were literally sitting there working, cutting their way, blowing their way through the hill with dynamite and such. And so because of that, the workers needed a place to stay. And so originally this was kind of a tent city. It was a kind of a pop-up city that was there as people were working. And then over time, because the county had been open for settlement, it became a little more permanent. And so we had some actual buildings that were constructed. Oak Lake was the first place that people could come in Becker County to get their land. And so if you were coming to claim a homestead in Becker County, you would have to go to Oak Lake and you would have to go to the land office to claim your land before you could go out and settle it. And so it was really a hopping place. In the Wilcox book, in the Pioneer History of Becker County, there's some great descriptions of Oak Lake, so I'm just going to read a little bit about those. This village was founded in about 1871, so again, right as the railroad started coming through. There were also the usual accompaniments of saloons, gamblers, sports toughs, confidence men, and fast women, such as are usually found congregated together on the outskirts of civilization, wherever there are any unusually large gathering of men without families. So Oak Lake was not maybe the best community to bring your kids. One large tent was used for a dance hall, and various other doings of a mysterious character were said to be carried out in that tent, as a consequence of which it was shunned by all timid people. Conspicuous among the gang of outlaws that infested the town were two superfine cutthroats of the first water. So this is the description of the very first murder that occurred in Becker County. And the great-grandson of one of the participants created a really lovely brochure, which we'll look through as I'm talking about the story. The name of one of these cutthroats was Shang, a polished expert of the light-fingered craft who claimed to be a native of Dublin, Ireland, and the name of the other was Shumway. After the Northern Pacific Railroad was completed to Moorhead in the fall of 1871, this pair of land pirates changed their quarters to that village, much to the relief of people of Oak Lake. However, on a return trip, April 25th of 1872, Shang was shot and mortally wounded by Shumway, who after he was wounded attempted to shoot Shang, but instead shot and killed an innocent bystander, a barkeep by the name of Thompson. Clay County, now Becker County at this point didn't have any law enforcement, so Clay County was on the scene and had also just been organized and had no county officers. The newly appointed county commissioners met immediately and appointed a man named James to arrest the murderer Shang. At a preliminary hearing after Shumway's death, Shang was released on a nominal bond and was never prosecuted, being that the general opinion was that he rendered Moorhead and Becker County a good service in ridding it of Shumway, although Shang was, if possible, the worst villain of the two. So an interesting kind of justice system in early Becker County and at Oak Lake. Oak Lake, as I said, later became Fort Detroit and then eventually became Forest Hills Golf Course. So kind of an interesting little slice of Becker County history in that part of the world. Now, Detroit Lakes proper became Detroit Lakes in 1871, but prior to that, we had Tylertown. Tylertown was named after Melvin Tyler, and he built a little hotel, basically which sat kind of where the Roosevelt building is now, the office building, right on the Roosevelt Road / Richwood Road. And that hotel was the first stop on the railroad. It was the only boarding house in the region, and so people stayed there. Talked about getting their mail at Tylertown. They would basically drop the bag of mail onto the bed, and you'd have to come through and sort through it and try to find the things that belonged to you. And so this Tylertown building stood there for quite a few years. There are early accounts of people traveling through and staying there. And over time, then the Historical Society went out and took some pictures of it as it was kind of falling into decay, and so those are the pictures that you see now. But Tylertown basically was about an 8-block radius here in Detroit Lakes, and later was just simply absorbed right into the community of Detroit Lakes. And so it was, again, an interesting piece of our history. This space was frequented by the New England colony, which was the original group of men who came to Detroit to plat it out and to create the city that we live in now. So lost towns in Becker County, there are many more that we're going to talk about as we move through. So please stay tuned for our next episode, and we'll follow up with places like Westbury, Ogama, Osage, and a few others. Just to clarify, as we were going through looking at the great information provided to us about the Shang and Shumway murder story, that material was produced by a descendant of the Kiefer family. The Kiefers were, Mr. Kiefer was the mayor of the city of Moorhead during the time that event took place. So just a credit to those folks for that great information.